Imagine this. You're a hunter-gatherer living 40,000 years ago. No DNA tests, no family names, no written records, no hospitals keeping birth certificates, no photographs, no legal documents, no government office with a file cabinet containing your entire life story. A child is born. Everyone knows who the mother is. That's easy. The baby literally came out of her. But the father? How exactly are you supposed to know? Seriously. Think about it. For most of human history, people had absolutely no scientific understanding of reproduction. They didn't know about chromosomes. They didn't know about genes. They didn't know about sperm cells or egg cells or fertilization. They didn't even know what DNA was. Yet, somehow, human societies all over the world developed ideas about fathers, inheritance, family lines, and ancestry. How? Did ancient humans actually know who their father was? Or did they just guess? And if they were guessing, why did the idea of fatherhood become so important almost everywhere on Earth? The answer turns out to be one of the strangest stories in human history. Because for a surprisingly long time, humans may not have understood biological fatherhood at all. And if that's true, it changes the way we think about family, marriage, jealousy, inheritance, and maybe even civilization itself. Let's go. The first thing we need to do is get rid of a modern assumption. We automatically think that the connection between sex and babies is obvious. Of course it is. Every child learns it eventually. But that's because we grow up surrounded by thousands of years of accumulated knowledge. Ancient humans didn't. Imagine you're living in a small hunter-gatherer band. A woman becomes pregnant. 9 months later, a baby appears. Now ask yourself something uncomfortable. Would you automatically connect those two events? Not necessarily. Because 9 months is an absurdly long delay. If eating an apple caused you to grow feathers 9 months later, most people would never make that connection. Human brains are excellent at spotting patterns, but they are terrible at spotting patterns separated by hundreds of days. And many anthropologists believe that some early societies may not have fully understood the biological role of males in conception. In fact, there are documented societies in recent history where people believed pregnancy was caused partly by spirits, ancestors, divine forces, or repeated sexual activity rather than a single act of fertilization. To us, this sounds bizarre, but only because we already know the answer. Knowledge that feels obvious today often took humanity thousands of years to discover. Now here's where things become fascinating. Even if ancient humans didn't understand genetics, they absolutely understood resemblance. A child looks like someone. Humans are pattern recognition machines. We're obsessed with faces. Research shows that newborn babies are examined almost immediately for similarities to parents. He has his mother's eyes. She has her father's nose. People do this instinctively. And ancient humans almost certainly did too. A hunter might look at a growing child and notice something familiar. The shape of the jaw, the way they walk, their voice, their temperament, their facial features. No DNA test required. Not perfect. Not scientific. But often surprisingly accurate. Modern genetic studies show that humans can detect biological relatedness at rates significantly better than random chance. Your brain is constantly scanning for family resemblance without you even realizing it. But resemblance wasn't enough, because ancient human life created a bigger problem. Investment. Children are expensive. Not expensive in money. Money didn't exist. Expensive in calories. Expensive in time. Expensive in risk. A human child takes longer to mature than almost any animal on Earth. Years and years of feeding, protecting, teaching, carrying, watching. An infant can't follow the group, can't gather food, can't hunt, can't defend itself. For a species with such helpless offspring, raising children became a group project. And that changes everything. Because once adults begin investing enormous resources into children, a question naturally appears. Whose child is this? Not because of curiosity, because of survival. And this may be where fatherhood truly begins. Not with biology, with responsibility. A man didn't need a DNA test to act like a father. He only needed a reason to care. Anthropologists studying hunter-gatherer societies have repeatedly found that fatherhood is often more social than biological. The man who protects the child, feeds the child, teaches the child, sleeps near the child, may effectively become the father regardless of genetics. In many traditional societies, biological fatherhood mattered less than social fatherhood. Who raised you mattered more than who conceived you. And that makes sense. Genes don't teach you how to make tools. Genes don't show you where the water is. Genes don't protect you from predators. People do. The modern obsession with biological certainty is actually unusual in historical terms. For most of human history, fatherhood was something you did, not something you proved. But here's where evolution enters the story. Because while culture can define fatherhood however it wants, biology has its own agenda. Males across many species face a problem. Females don't. Maternity is visible. Paternity is uncertain. A mother never wonders if the child is hers. A father potentially can. And that uncertainty creates powerful evolutionary pressures. Some researchers believe this is one reason human pair bonding became so important. Long-term relationships increase confidence of paternity, not certainty. Nothing before DNA could provide certainty. But confidence. Enough confidence to justify investing resources into offspring. This may explain why jealousy appears in virtually every human culture, why marriage emerges repeatedly across civilizations, why rules surrounding sexuality become so important, why entire legal systems eventually develop around inheritance and legitimacy. At their deepest level, many of these institutions are really attempts to answer a single ancient question. Who is the father? Civilizations built libraries, kingdoms, laws, religions, and dynasties around solving a problem that modern people can now answer with a cheek swab and a laboratory. Which is almost funny when you think about it. Thousands of years of social engineering, 30 seconds of modern genetics. But here's the twist. Even today, knowing who your father is isn't always as simple as DNA, because humans aren't just biological creatures. We're social creatures. A DNA test can identify who contributed genetic material. It cannot identify who stayed, who sacrificed, who taught, who protected, who cared. Ancient humans understood something we sometimes forget. A father is partly biology, but fatherhood is behavior. And for most of human history, behavior was the only evidence anyone had. So, how did ancient humans know who their father was? Sometimes they didn't. Sometimes they guessed. Sometimes communities assigned fatherhood socially. Sometimes resemblance provided clues. Sometimes long-term pair bonds created confidence. And sometimes the answer remained uncertain forever. But that uncertainty didn't stop human societies from functioning. In many ways, it helped shape them. Because the challenge of identifying fathers influenced marriage, inheritance, family structures, social norms, and perhaps even the development of civilization itself. The strange truth is that ancient humans spent hundreds of thousands of years solving a mystery that modern science solved only yesterday. And yet, even after DNA finally answered the biological question, the human question remains exactly the same. Not who created the child, but who showed up for them? That's the question our ancestors were really trying to answer all along.